Trump deployed 2,000 National Guard troops and 700 Marines to Los Angeles. How unprecedented rather, is this in recent U.S. history, and what does it signal about Trump's domestic policy trajectory?
Well, and thank you so much for having me to talk about this today. You know, the fact is that, you know, in enacting the National Guard in recent history is something that we really haven't seen that much of, but it is certainly within the confines of the presidential powers. I mean, when President Richard Nixon, he used the National Guard to help deliver the mail in the 1970s. So there are any reasons and many reasons that a president can use the National Guard to protect American interests. And if you can do it to deliver the mail, I'm sure you can make the case to that, you know, protecting American and federal property and people is certainly a valid use of what's happening here. I fear, however, that while President may be right to do this and able to do this and legally acceptable to do this, the violence and the images that we're seeing out there, he may be losing the emotional war on this situation. It's not about necessarily deporting the criminals and deporting the people that are being violent about these ICE raids. Instead, it's being perceived as those who are innocent taxpayers, people that have lived here for decades, people that contribute to the economy and the community as being targeted. And the president needs to message that better, that they're not going after the people who are contributing to society, but instead they're going after the criminals, as they say, the worst of the worst. But unfortunately, that message is not getting through, and we're seeing more and more protests and more violence out there. And I don't necessarily see a solution at this point other than finding a way to protect Americans and protect American interests and protect businesses and the economy.
Mm-hmm. Dr. Singer, the LA Governor Newsom described the deployment as the act of a dictator. So, in your view, is there a legal basis for the president's use of military force on American streets without state consent?
Both of them, Newsom and President Trump, they have a legal issue about, the action to deploy, the Marines or deploy the National Guard. So now we are facing, what we call it federal versus the state conflict. In other words, the president's decision to deploy the National Guard over local objections point to increasing that friction between the federal and state government. This weekend, unifying the crisis response and reflecting political polarization in terms of what? As a Newsom is reflecting, the division of Democratic Party, and unfortunately, that kind of ongoing conflict in Democratic Party and Republican Party, or President Trump is still in that situation. Even it's really crucial for the future of the United States. It's really crucial for the national security of the United States. But that friction or that conflict between the federal and the state in terms of their legality of recall or calling, the National Guard or the Marines. This is the point where Newsom declared clearly this is completely against the law, and this is why he decides to sue the President Trump in that decision. I think this is one of the major problems is facing, the current situation before to talk about, the right by ICE to capturing, the undocumented immigrants. Of course, President Trump and any person in the United States, he completely agreed to stop, the massive immigrants to the United States without paperwork or without legality in the United States. So this is the major legal issue currently now facing what is going on in Los Angeles. But clearly, that gap between Newsom as the governor of California and President Trump that gap is not really helping to solve that problem easily.
Well, Mr. Rene, the Defense Secretary said the deployment is to protect the federal buildings and restore order. Is this justification convincing, or is it a politically motivated decision? I mean, are we going to see more of the state, the rule of state, overriding the rule of the local authority?
Yeah, I think it's a mixture of both. The images that we're seeing on television these days of rocks being thrown at police cars, burning cars, businesses on fire, just this chaos in the streets. I mean, the fact of the matter is that order has to be brought in these types of situations. People have a right to have their voices heard, and people have a right to protest, but they do not have a right to throw rocks at police cars and and have this type of damage done to property and to damage businesses and threaten people's safety and lives. That's not okay. And so if Gavin Newsom and local authorities are not going to do that, then it's incumbent upon the president to do so and to make sure that these people and properties and federal assets are kept safe. The people voted for President Trump, and a big part of that was for having him deport some of these most dangerous criminal aliens that have come to the United States. We're not necessarily fighting over the people that contribute to the economy, the people that have come here illegally, the people that have paid taxes here for years and years and years. That's not what this is about. But unfortunately, this has become a very political situation. And if local leaders are willing to see their streets and businesses and police cars burn because of it, just because of their hatred for Donald Trump, it's a sad situation. There needs to be order brought, and there needs to be safety brought in these situations, and this needs to rise beyond politics.